Hey, you guys, and welcome to day 3. I'm excited about this topic. I mean, if you haven't noticed, I'm excited about all of them. But these questions and misconceptions are some of the things that really hold people back. And I had some of these myself. So, first, I want to start off by saying you're not alone if you have some of these fears, or if you have some of these questions, or if you were holding on to some of these misconceptions. I personally had to work through some of them on my own. I realized in the beginning that I was holding on to things I thought were true that actually weren't. And I think that's probably the biggest, I don't want to say mistake, but the biggest thing that I see out there is people claim that they know what Beachbody coaching is, and that and they go off and say all these things, but none of it's founded. It's all up of opinion of people who don't have never really actually done true research. So I'm going to dive into some of the most common things that I hear or that I said. Number one, I am not a salesperson. Who can relate? Who has said that? Who has thought that even as you're going through this group and learning about this potential job opportunity? I'm not a salesperson. This sounds great, Jessica, but I'm just not a salesperson. I'm really shy, right? Okay, so that was me. Maybe not in the shy part. But on the salesperson, I don't want to be the person that annoys people. I will not be the person that my family and friends run from because they're afraid that I'm going to, every time I see them, like force something down their throat. It's not who I am, never has been who I was, and I refuse to be that. Here's what I tell you, and this is what my coach told me too. When I first said, like, I'm not a salesperson, she said, good, Jessica. Because people come into this business from sales and they're not always great at it because this is so vastly different. There is a transaction involved in you helping people, but what we have to offer people is more of a service than a sale. Let me explain a little bit more because there are other companies with a similar business model in the field of network marketing that it is more of sales, whereas your work is put in on the front end to get a transaction to happen, and then usually it's over. With our unique approach to helping people, our work and responsibilities start at the transaction of the purchase. So when someone purchases a challenge pack, for instance, and they get Beachbody on Demand, they get access to a nutrition program, and they get Shakeology, it's at that point that they are added to our teams. And most of our work goes into mentoring our teams and providing the accountability. We went over some of that when we talked about what a coach does, right? And so the only sales part is the transaction that occurs for them to get plugged into your community. Make sense? Just like, I don't know, there's so many different analogies, but just know that if you're not comfortable with sales necessarily, it doesn't mean that this isn't for you, because I said the same thing and I'm pretty successful at what I do. It's more of a service that we're offering. Number 2, another thing I said, I don't have the time. This is cool and everything. I wish I had the time, but I just don't. Sister or brother. Let me tell you a hard truth right now. We make time for what's important to us. And it could be in your life right now that you're really not prioritizing or looking for a way out of your current circumstances. And that's totally fine. But for me, once I learned what this could be, I made it happen. Like I've told you many times before, I worked a minimum of 40 hours a week. Most of the time it was more in a prison. I had an hour commute every day and I had a baby at home. And so I didn't have a lot of time either. And that's why I said from the beginning, I want nothing to do with coaching because I don't have the time for anything else. I've got normal house stuff. My husband's in law enforcement and he's on call all the time and he works double shifts and we have a baby and I've got all these things. I don't have time for a side business. Like I don't have time for this thing. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to shower. Like that's how I felt. But the honest truth is, and this is from my experience, like you make it happen. I worked collectively maybe 10, 15 hours a week learning and doing this in tiny pockets of time, which you're going to learn about today. And I know lawyers, like I have friends in this business who started with kids, multiple kids at home, and worked 90 hours a week as a lawyer and still found a way to make this business work because they had a high necessity. They saw the value and the potential, and that putting in the work and the effort and the sacrifice now would pay off in dividends later. And now that friend of mine who's a lawyer is doing this full time in a mansion in Florida and like making an incredible living home with her family. So again, worth the investment. All right, number 3, I don't have a background or any knowledge in health and fitness. And I kind of covered this yesterday, but that doesn't matter. I told you a little bit about the story of my coach, Liz, and she will tell you, like, her background is in wine and bread. She's Italian, and that's like how they grew up, and that was her background, and in business and journalism, and that was what she went to school for. You do not have to have any background because you are not claiming to be a professional and a program creator. All the content, all the tools, the resources, the products already developed for you. All you have to do is do them yourself, learn a little bit about what they are so that you can help match people, recommend people to do this for themselves, and you do it with them. Okay, number 4, I'm not at my goal weight and I don't have a transformation. How could I ever tell people that this works or that they should do it too when I still have X amount of weight to lose, or I still XYZ, fill in your whatever that may be? When I started, if you've seen my before and after pictures, had just had a baby, right? And I was just diagnosed with degenerative disc. And I was in a lot of pain, and I was not bouncing back like I thought that I would. And I had all of this extensive background, and I used to do CrossFit and all these things. And here I was struggling to lose weight and get in shape after baby, struggling to heal my back, struggling with energy, struggling with sleepless nights, right? But it didn't stop me because I used the results I was seeing other people get that inspired me. I started this because I saw this random chick's before and after picture and her transformation, and that made me want to do it. And so I took that picture, I screenshotted it, and I sent it to 4 of my closest family members, and I said, let's do this together. I know nothing about it. I haven't done it yet. I haven't tried anything yet, but this would be so much fun. And I was just excited. And that enthusiasm and excitement has served me throughout my entire business. So you do not need to be at your goal weight by any means. In fact, it's proven that people would rather be on your journey with you than for you to be here already with your 6-pack abs, already seeming to have it figured out, and to be telling people, like, let me lead you through this. People would rather be on the journey with you. And it's such a wasted opportunity when people refuse to share what they're doing until they have a success story, because people want to do things with you. So you can share other people's success stories, tell them why you're choosing to do this, and then just invite them to figure it out with you. It's much less intimidating that way to invite people to check it out, and it works really well. All right, this is a common one. Is this a pyramid scheme? I actually get this from a lot of husbands just because they don't get it. And I don't blame you, because I was in the group where I thought that Beachbody and any network marketing company I thought pyramid schemes and all that was all the same. And I did not know what a pyramid scheme was. And so that's my first question when people ask me, I don't want to be part of like a pyramid scheme thing. And my first question is, okay, I totally get it. I don't either. But could you tell me what a pyramid scheme is? And usually they can't, to be honest. And I say that from a humble place because I couldn't either. I didn't know what it was. And I just threw it in. The reason why people think that is because of the way your organization could be structured. And I prefer to think of it as like a family tree. It's like a reverse family tree. And if you look at any business model, it's set up this way, right? Because me as a coach, when I say I sign up 3 other people that want to coach as well. So there's me and there's these 3 people. And those 3 people find 3 people who want to coach. So then all of a sudden, this person has 3 more people. This person has 3. This person has 3. What does that form? A triangle. So it's a pyramid shape. That is the confusion factor. I want you to look at a grocery store. You have, I don't know what the CEO, you have managers, you probably have sub-managers, you have like department heads, you have the clerks, grocery store clerks, baggers, pyramid. Look at, so for me, in my nursing job, there was the chief executive nurse, the director of nursing, the nurse supervisors, all of the RNs, all of the LVNs. It forms a triangle. Any business is set up that way. Here's the benefit. I don't have a boss. I have a coach who mentors me, but at any point I can pass her up. At any point, the coaches that I mentor, and that's my goal, is for all of them to pass me up and become more successful than I am. And based on what you've learned from our compensation plan, it actually benefits me for these people to be successful. And so it, in a sense, it is such you have to be selfless in this business. You can't be selfish and only out for number one, because you're never going to have duplication and grow that residual income that we learned about. You actually, over time, will want to learn how to mentor other people to be successful. You're invested in their success. I'm invested in my coach's success, because not only is it going to help them and their family, but it's also going to help the stability of my job financially. That's so rad. That's such a cool benefit. Okay, next. Can you really make money with this if you're new? And I never had actually heard this one until recently, but some people think that if the way that network marketing works, if you get in later in the game, that there's no chance for you to make money. I don't know where the logic in that comes from, to be honest with you. But let me tell you for sure it's not true. I know new coaches that have just got started in the last year who out earn what I earn, and I make a good living. I know coaches who signed up after, and coaches who signed up, 5 years before me who don't make as much. That has nothing to do with the timing. When you're involved with a company that's always evolving, and I will say that about Beachbody and our CEO, he's constantly looking to evolve. That is why this year we are expanding into France. And over the course of the next 5 years, we're looking to expand even more so globally. Our coaching platform that we use to support our clients is constantly changing. We've gone through several market upgrades in the last 4 years, just since I've been doing this, that have really changed the game. And they're always doing research, trying to figure out how to get the edge on the market and how to expand and make this more successful for us, which I'm so thankful to be a part of a company that is willing to evolve and is not stuck in their ways. Okay, and then lastly, I'm an introvert. I'm very shy. I'm a private person, and I don't have really any social media, and I live in a small town. So I can relate to part of this. When I started, I told you I worked in a prison, and my husband also still works in that same prison, and his specific job was in an investigative unit in gang and drug investigations. And I had to be very careful because the inmates we worked with, they do nothing but observe, and so they figured out that we were together and eventually that we were married. And I had to be very careful because when you work in investigations in a prison, you are surrounded with actual criminals. Like, I don't know if you knew that, but so he's talking to the Mexican mafia, and he's talking to people who are, have many connections on the streets. And so I had to be very careful, and we had to have specific boundaries with my social media and my connection with him and my name, because we only went by last names there. And so for the first 2.5 years of my business, I on social media went by my first and middle name and not my last name. And I changed my whole business from my name to a business name, which is Health Patriot Coaching, instead of Jessica Lanier Coaching, because of that unique thing. So I can identify with people who are more private, who are worried about that kind of stuff. That being said, we have learned a lot about how to be very smart, and we don't check in to places, and I share that with the coaches that I mentor. So I can relate to that piece, to that element. I also am from a very small town. I am not an introvert. In fact, I attract introverts. So if you're watching this and you consider yourself an introvert, that you are not alone. Honestly, like 97% of our team are introverts. I attract them. So welcome. That's not a problem. I've learned a lot about introverts. They're actually more successful in business than extroverts. And it's more about how you recharge. And so it's not necessarily, you can be an outgoing introvert. You can be someone, and from this bit, I work from home. I don't have to go anywhere to be around a ton of people to do this job, which is a huge introvert benefit. As far as being shy, it depends on, a lot of times when you use shyness as an excuse as to why you're not going to do something that you actually want to do, it has to do with the confidence factor. And so that's where personal development comes in. And this does not mean in any way judging anyone's situation, but usually there is a low level of confidence in one's ability to be successful. And so that creates this, you turn inward and you don't want to risk failing, right? That is a huge thing that holds a lot of people back. It held me back from a few things. Again, this is where personal development and learning how to master your mindsets changed my life and so many people's lives that I mentor, because you start to realize, what am I afraid of when it comes to failing? What people will think? What am I afraid of? Who will think? And then you start to learn about stories like Oprah's story. And you start to learn about Michael Jordan's story and how he got cut from his high school basketball team. And you start to learn about Starbucks and their story. Businesses that are extremely successful and how many times they failed. When we start to recognize that failure is actually a huge beneficial thing, it's a beneficial part of learning and growing, and it is an essential factor to being successful, all of a sudden it becomes not so scary, if that makes sense. And when you start to build your confidence as to why you're choosing to do this for yourself, it doesn't matter so much what other people think. Because really, do you want to be a person that bases your life, your choices, your risks that you take, the person that you are, do you really want to benefit, or do you really want to base that off of what strangers think or what other people think that don't have your story, don't have your gifts, don't have your unique strengths? I hope not. And that is part of the huge benefit and asset to this job, is that it makes you think about those questions and we row into them. So if you're someone who's an introvert and who's shy and has low self-esteem and low confidence, you're from a small town, I know several people, several of my friends actually, that have been very successful coming from the same place. The one thing that they had was a determination and a high necessity to do something about it. It doesn't matter where you're at right now, but if you have a high motivation factor to change a current situation and you see how this could do that, nothing will be able to get in your way. and I'll walk you through every single step along the way. So I hope that these questions have helped you. If you have something that you have a question about, or maybe you have a certain fear or misconception about, please comment below because I'd love to address it. These are just some of the most common ones. All right, I'll talk to you soon.